Sometimes all it takes to make sense of an investment is a change of perspective.
Insurance really is an income, in my opinion. No different than, I had health insurance when I had a couple surgeries a few years ago back. The two surgeries I had cost $300,000. Well, I received that money to pay these bills that cost $300,000. And that money I received, I didn't pay a dime of taxes on. So I'm thankful, and I paid pennies on the dollar to get that. So sometimes it changes. We have to change the way that we look at things. And so some people think of insurance as, I don't need that. You should really look at insurance as the income or the cash flow needed to pay these bills when they show up. And they're, like I said, they're really salty bills. We're seeing bills $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a month, just depending on where you are, without an end date.
And at the end of the day, the sustainability of your ranch comes down to two things on the economic side. First of all, profitability. Secondly, cash flow.
We talk about that, Clay. You talk about it all the time on your podcast. So that's what your podcast is about. How is this farm cash flowing? How is this ranch cash flowing? I talk about it nonstop. How is that money cash flowing so we can put that through a policy, right? We can have more money. Everything is cash flow. Same thing with Michelle.
Yep.
It's cash flow. I mean, that is the name of her business, is Care Income Planning. So how can we have that cash flow continually coming in to pay for assisted living, to pay for care at home, to pay for the nursing home care? Like, all of those things matter. You could sell the farm and maybe have enough cash flow to pay for that, to pay for those nursing home costs. But to have cash flowing assets at $10,000 to $15,000 a month in today's dollars, that is not inflation of 15 to 20 years.
We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode 520 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Remedy Animal Solutions.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast. Very excited to be joined today by Mary Jo Irmen once again, and she's brought a friend along, Michelle Prather, and we're going to talk to them about the issues related to protecting farms and ranches from the threat of long-term hospitalization, long-term care, dementia care, all these things that seem to become more and more common all the time. And a lot of these things end up threatening ranches and becoming a threat to economic and cash flow sustainability of ranches. So looking forward to this conversation with them and sharing it with you right now. Michelle, Mary Jo, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows podcast.
Thanks for having us, Clay. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Right. Mary Jo, welcome back for sure. So has been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I think
years. So it's nice to be back.
Yeah. And Michelle, Mary Jo reached out and said, I think this is a powerful tool that Michelle is helping people with, and always interested in protecting family ranches, keeping farms in families as long as possible. And I think one of the threats to that is long-term care. It's thousands of dollars a month on the low end, I think, is from my understanding. And so obviously that can cut into equity pretty quickly. And so I guess, first of all, is that kind of accurate in your understanding of kind of the state of things and the actual threat that is long-term care to the viability of family ranches staying in families?
Absolutely. I mean, this is my opinion. It is the biggest threat to farming families, ranching families, to American families, because it's a growing issue and it's extremely salty. It is really expensive. And I always tell people, tell me how long you're going to live and I'll tell you what you need to do. And unfortunately, that's a variable that we don't get an answer to. And so that's when we see families start to hemorrhage out dollars for a very long period of time. If it were a short period of time, most families could handle that. It's the long, and that's why we call it long-term care. It's the long need that really pokes a hole right in the side of any good solid plan.
And
And you've seen it, Clay, like in the farming industry, like we do everything in our power to protect it. Well, we should do everything in our power to protect it, but we cry when we lose it. But we didn't do the things and educate ourselves on what we needed to do to protect it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is just such a, like, you always hear people talk about protecting it from the nursing home, and it is part of the equation that needs to be talked more about.
absolutely.
Yeah, well, and that's all they hear, right, Mary Jo? Many families, they only hear about protecting it from the nursing home. So put it in a trust or get it out of your name. But what they don't realize is the default option for that is really a chaos option. You are defaulting for a government strategy, a government plan. And Clay, I don't know about you. I've done everything possible in my life to avoid that being my only option. I don't want a government plan or government welfare, if you will, to pay for those things because then you lose options. We lose control. We lose choice. And I want as many options and as much choice and dignity as I possibly can get. But people don't know. They haven't been told that there are some beautiful, really cool options out there that families can put into place where they don't have to have that as their only option.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify that, what would those other options be? Just to say, hey, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about the government subsidized option, and just so people know, oh, that's what we're using. We should go a different direction.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. So, well, one, we're talking about insurance. And when I say insurance, usually people go, insurance, more insurance. I have so much insurance. But what they fail to look at insurance in a different way, insurance really is an income, in my opinion. No different than, I had health insurance when I had a couple surgeries a few years ago back. The two surgeries I had cost $300,000. Well, I received that money to pay these bills that cost $300,000. And that money I received, I didn't pay a dime of taxes on. So I'm thankful, and I paid pennies on the dollar to get that. So sometimes it changes. We have to change the way that we look at things. And so some people think of insurance as, I don't need that. You should really look at insurance as the income or the cash flow needed to pay these bills when they show up. And like I said, they're really salty bills. We're seeing bills $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a month, just depending on where you are, without an end date. So the first option clearly would be an insurance option. Now, some of your viewers might think of insurance, the old type of long-term care insurance that I like to call the flip phone policies. The old flip phones, they had a purpose, but it was really just one purpose, and it paid for a nursing home. So some people, and they weren't written very well to where they couldn't get a lot of benefit out of them. And then, of course, if they never needed care, then that money was perceived to be wasted because they didn't have anything on the back end. The newer smartphone type long-term care insurance policies, they have evolved quite a bit. So you will find policies that will have cash value built up in growth. You will see that they pay out at death. If you never needed it for care, at least somebody got it. But most importantly, they have very rich benefits that will pay out for one person or two people for their lifetime. So when we get into those issues, that really is what makes people afraid, Clay. It's the Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's, the dementia, those long stays. That's really what freaks people out. These are policies that will never run out of money. They're not paying for 3-5 years. They could pay for 10, 20 plus years, just depending on the situation. It will pay out forever. So when I say insurance, I don't want people to think of the old flip phone type policies because they've evolved so much more to offer benefits really however you end up using it. And Mary Jo has, had policies herself, and a lot of her clients have these types of policies, and more are getting them because it also works hand in hand with everything that Mary Jo does. Because it's protecting all the plans, the estate plans, the banking strategies, all those plans that she's helping these families put in place for protection.
Sure.
And long-term care has really gotten a bad rap, right? It's a use it or lose it situation. I'm going to buy long-term care, and then at 85, I'm not in the nursing home yet, or at 80, I'm not in the nursing home yet, and I get a letter that says my premium went up. And so you hear this all the time. Do I pay the extra premium? I don't even know if I'm going to use it. Or I think I'm going to cancel it. Mom is 95 and she's still not in the nursing home. So I think I'm going to cancel this policy because the premiums keep going up. And so for me, like the whole reason that Michelle and I are really working together, sort of together, I mean, we're separate, but I'm referring everybody to Michelle on this, is because the fact that so I was selling some long-term care. I've sold a couple of them over the years, and it is built on a whole life chassis. So it's still the product that I use for infinite banking, but One America has that long-term care piece that will pay for life. That is a guaranteed premium. It's never going to go up. It's going to pay. Like, it's just such a good product. And it's not the use it or lose it scenario that we have heard people talk about. And I feel like in the farming world, we know we need it. So we want long-term care. We buy it because we know we don't want to lose the farm to the nursing home. However, we don't love it. And we're now getting to the point where I am seeing so much estate planning that does not include long-term care because it has such a bad rap, kind of like whole life, right? Oh, it's universal life has created this bad rap for whole life. And so now we've got bad long-term care policies that have created a bad rap. And some of it is the agent, some of it is just, a bad product that was sold and the agent didn't know. But when we get the right product, now we're protecting the farm and we're not losing it to the nursing home, which the nursing home's not really taking it, but that's what everybody says is we're losing it to the nursing home. No, you're actually working your butt off to become a welfare case because it is going to be Medicaid that's going to kick in for the nursing.
And there are limitations on those Medicaid policies too. Is that correct?
There's not a Medicaid policy. So what Michelle was talking about is long-term care a long-term care insurance policy is the option instead of having Medicaid pay. And then you get to have a roommate and you get to go to a nursing home. Those are your options with Medicaid, right? But if you don't want those and you don't want to become a beneficiary of taxpayer dollars, as Michelle says, you then go by the long-term care policy. So you get the private room, you can get taken care of at home, and I'll let Michelle talk about all that stuff. But those are the things, like you really have two options. Three. You cash pay, you let Medicaid pay, or you let an insurance company pay.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Remedy Animal Solutions. Are you plagued with respiratory infections, pink eye, too many open cattle, lice, high vet and drug bills? Let Remedy Animal Solutions help you transition to a drug and vax-free system with their protocols. Prevention is way better than medicating. Let them show you how to be more effective, spend less, and do less work doctoring using their effective formulas sprayed on salt for prevention or intranasally for treatment, never needing a drug or needle. Consumer demand for clean meat is high. Remedy Animal Solutions can give you customized advice by calling them to get your concerns and challenges resolved. Their natural and organically qualified products have no holdback time or culls when treated. For listeners of the Working Cows podcast, you can get $200 off your complete first aid kit for quick treatment options on the spot. Consider listening to both of our previous episodes with Ellen Bench of Remedy Animal Solutions on the Working Cows podcast to get more information about how to integrate these options into your operation. And obviously, there's limitations to cash paying, limitations to letting Medicaid pay because, like you said, you lose the options. You have a roommate, whatever, so those are some of the limitations, right? Am I understanding it correctly to this point, I guess?
Yeah, that's correct. And then we also have to take into consideration trends. And so, the government, when they do pay for Medicaid type facility beds, they're going to have limits on that because they're limited to the facilities that will have a reduced paid bed. So oftentimes you'll find in a nursing home, they'll have a private pay wing. It tends to look a little bit better. The beds are a little bit more comfortable. It's interesting how that works. And then you've got the Medicaid wing. So they'll limit how many beds are available. But if you think about this, Clay, and a lot of people aren't really thinking about this, I wrote a chapter in my book called The Boomers Are Coming. And we all know what happens when boomers show up to a new milestone in their life. They dominate. So boomers got to school age, schools boomed. They get to, start having young families. Housing boomed. Everything boomed because of them. So the boomers they haven't really hit this in mass numbers yet. We are expecting this here in the next 5 to 10 years. So they're going to dominate. So the question is there going to be enough supply? Is there going to be enough, government paid for beds available to house this very large number of people that we like to call the silver tsunami, because they're coming and we have to prepare for this. So we've got boomers coming in, so we've got supply and demand issues. Supply and demand will generate a higher cost as well. If we have less supply, we all know how this works, then they're going to charge more for it. So cash is king. If you can private pay, you are going to have more options and more freedom to choose for yourself. We also know that a lot of, and we've seen this in states, that Medicaid has had some issues here more recently in the news with fraud, and a lot of it had to do with home health care agencies. So again, my expectation, this is Michelle's humble opinion, is that there's going to be more clamp down on those requirements and who's getting paid for home health care and things like that. So we're going to see that tighten up a little bit, but you're also going to see a large number of people trying to get that type of care. So it's going to cause another problem. So for me, I'm just one of those believers that if I can do anything possible to create as much cash flow myself, then I have more power to pay for the care in which I want to be cared for, or at least give my daughters, I have 2 daughters, give them a choice in what they want to do as far as taking care of mom and dad.
Yeah, I appreciate that clarification. So then can you talk to me about, Mary Jo alluded to it earlier, some of the other options or some of the other things that your way of handling this issue will afford people? I think Mary Jo mentioned the home options and some of those things.
Yeah, so I'll give a story here in a minute that I think will probably help bring some clarity. So these policies are not just nursing home. That's what a lot of people think. Oh, it's only going to pay for me to be in a nursing home, but it pays for a lot of different types of care. It pays for care to be in your home. It pays for assisted living facilities. It pays for, of course, nursing homes. They also pay for adult daycare. Adult daycare is a newer thing. I started in the long-term care industry back in 1998. I'd never heard of adult daycare back in 1998. So it just goes to show you how care has evolved throughout these years. But the other things that people don't think about with these types of plans and policies, they pay for supportive equipment so that you can stay at home longer and be more comfortable. So I'll give some examples. Let's say that you're wheelchair bound. These policies will pay for a ramp to be put in so that you can get in and out of your house. It'll pay for grab bars, in the john. It'll pay for a human lift. Maybe you're bedridden and your wife or your daughter can't lift you physically, so it pays for that type of technology to help get out of bed so you're not breaking your family or a caregiver down. There's a lot of different things that people don't necessarily think that these policies pay for. Medication dispensers. It will pay for any type of technology that way. But the neat part, because these insurance companies have really evolved to figure out, we can't figure out what the future is going to hold. We might have robots taking care of us in the future. So a lot of these policies have written verbiage in them that says alternative care, meaning if something changes in the future and it's good for the patient, it's cost effective and it makes sense, we can approve something that we haven't even dreamt of yet. Because like I said, we didn't even have adult daycare centers back when I first started, almost 30 years ago, but we do now. So these policies should be able to evolve with people as they age and as they get older. But what Mary Jo and I like to talk about quite a bit is so many people think of this as an older person thing. This happens to younger people all the time. And what am I talking about? I'm not talking necessarily about cognitive or Alzheimer's, although there are more younger and younger people that are dealing with this. What I'm really talking about is accidents and illnesses that people don't really think about. So a big one Mary Jo and I talk about is cancer. A lot of people think of cancer as something you die from or something that you heal from. But what we oftentimes don't realize is the battle in between. And that battle in between, it could make us frail. We're fighting for our life and we're taking, radiation, chemo, and it just wipes us out so much. So we're so weak that we cannot get ourselves out of bed or get ourselves in the restroom or give ourselves a bath. Well, these policies will pay for someone to take care of me. So if I needed care for, or if Mary Jo needed care for, her husband doesn't have to quit his job as well to come in and take care of her. They can hire the proper caregiver to come in and take care of her so that he can continue with his job or so that he doesn't break himself in his later ages. Illnesses are one of them. Accidents is another one. We hear a lot, Mary Jo can probably tell you a handful of those, farming accidents. Things happen, right? It's just life. Things happen. And something happens to where maybe you're paralyzed or, something happens there, but you still need to be taken care of. These policies would then pay for. So it's not just an older person thing, as we like to think about, something that happens way off in the future. This is something that can happen to anyone at any time. And so they would pay out for those as well.
And all they have to do is meet the requirement of they can't do 2 of the 6 daily living activities.
Mhm.
And so if I get caught in a PTO or I get, maybe a cow charges me or I flip a four-wheeler. I had that happen with a client. They flipped a four-wheeler. He was in ICU for, a couple of weeks, I think. They actually, clients of mine that they got a policy with Michelle and they're young. They're like not even 40 yet with 3 little kids. So, but that accident, how is she supposed to go to work and take care of 3 little kids and take care of him at home?
Mhm.
And so a policy like that can come in extremely helpful. And I did not know that. As somebody that sold long-term care, I had no idea until I interviewed Michelle on my podcast. I was like, what? Oh my gosh, like every young person should have long-term care.
Yeah.
And then it's super inexpensive because you're so young. It's just such a minor amount of money every month to get some decent care, because the one thing Michelle hasn't even touched on for you is what it costs per day to be in a nursing home.
Mhm.
And I don't think people, like you said, that I don't remember what you said, Clay, something like couple $1,000. We're talking like $10,000 a month, Will they pay for one of those chairs that lift?
I'm not sure about the recliner that gets you out. I'm not sure about that. I do know a human lift, but I can check on that. Yeah. Yeah, I'll check on that specifically because there's a lot of specific things that they could put in a policy, and then the policy would be 100 pages long. So, but I can ask if they've ever done that. If it's necessary, again, and it helps them to keep them at home, they will consider pretty much anything.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
yeah. So, an example, because Mary Jo had brought up younger folks. It's even being in this business almost 29 years. The last several months have been very eye-opening for me in working with Mary Jo and doing her podcast. The number of what I call younger people. So younger people in the long-term care world would be those 30s, 40s, and maybe even early 50s. Those people have been coming out in droves. And, it has actually made me step back a little bit thinking, what is going on that young people are so interested in this? And what I have found, and it might be unique to the ag community, I'm not sure, because they've probably seen it firsthand, what happens to the business, to the ranch, to the farm, through grandparents and parents. So maybe they're more aware of the issue versus your typical run-of-the-mill family. That's my guess. I don't know if that's the case, but I will say I have had more 30 and 40-year-olds. As a matter of fact, I had a young man that was 29. His options are more limited because they just haven't even been priced for someone in their 20s. But he reaches out to me and he says, Michelle, I'm a planner. And so I want to know what my future cost is going to be when I can hit the age where I can get that lifetime coverage so I can start saving now. I just thought, wow, this is a 29-year-old. that was very impressive to me that he had that kind of forethought to go, I should probably maybe start putting plans in place now. But I had a gentleman that listened to Mary Jo's podcast, and this is more of a recent case. He's in his late 30s. And of course, he thought about his mom. So his mom is a widow. She's a wonderful lady, very sharp. She's in her early 60s. And so they came on to a meeting with me both together, so mom and son. And we're really talking about mom. And mom has an IRA that I believe that she had built with her husband, but her husband since passed. So she now has this very rich IRA that she doesn't have any need for, meaning she doesn't have any need to live on it right now. And because she has other forms of income, we'll say. And so they're talking about it, and they have a friend down the street that is in memory care, and it's costing them, I think she said, over $15,000 a month. So it was really expensive because it's a higher level of care. And she said, I see what's happening to that family, and I don't want that to happen to mine. And she said, I want every penny paid for. And I get people from all over the place. They'll say, Michelle, I've got a good income. I just need you to fill the gap. So maybe I just need maybe $5,000 just to fill up that gap. Some people say, I want every dime paid for. And that was this lady. She said, I want every dime paid for. So she decided she wanted to do $14,000 a month with a living adjustment and inflation protection so it keeps up with the costs. So she's going to roll over about $400,000 of that IRA that she doesn't have any use for, and she's eventually going to pay taxes on anyway. So this allows her to do that over a series of years to minimize the taxation. It's a beautiful deal. It really worked well for her. And the son tells her, he says, Mom, why wouldn't you? What else are you going to use that money for? We could spend so much more than that in long-term care. And if you don't need it, then they get the death benefit anyway, so they didn't waste any of the money. So then we're talking about it. We're moving forward with mom. And I just happen to mention to the boy, I say boy, her son, what are you going to do? You're married. You've got kids. What are you doing about this? And he goes, well, I don't know. I didn't think about it. So I showed him the numbers. And at his age with his wife, both in their late 30s, it would cost them about $5,000 or so a year to provide each one of them $10,000 a month or $120,000 a year for the rest of both of their lives. Now, you tell me where you can put $5,000 a year to generate $120,000 a year that you cannot outlive, that's tax-free. That's the benefit of doing it younger versus later. Now, that doesn't mean that older people shouldn't look at this because it's still a great leveraging tool and making sure that it's tax-free. But the younger and healthier you are, the better the numbers are.
I think what this means is don't just tell your parents what to do. We're really good at that in this industry, telling mom and dad how to create the estate plan and what to buy and who to go see and all this stuff. We're really, really good at that. But then we're not taking care of our own stuff because we don't think we're old enough. Yeah. And 55 is old enough. 45 is old enough. Like, the amount of people that I see on social media that have cancer just don't wake up one day. They can't wake up dead. They just, you wake up and they're dead, right? They're in their 30s, they're in their 40s. Whatever is happening, and I don't know if it's just because it's social media and it's algorithm or what it is, but the amount of young people that are having issues we also need to just not tell mom and dad what to do, but we need to think of it ourselves as well.
I just thought about one more thing while you were talking. My apologies for interrupting. A lot of these folks don't know, and I've learned this through working with your community. When I say your community, the farming and ranching community, they don't realize that there's extra tax advantages there, meaning you're a business owner. You have an LLC. I've dealt with some that have S Corps. I've only dealt with one that had a C Corp, and they have a sweet spot. If you've got a C Corp, you need to call me because you've got something sweet with long-term care where you can tax deduct all of the long-term care premium. And there's not limitations there like you do with the others. But there's still extra tax incentives, and that's what I told this gentleman because he does have an LLC, that he has some more tax deductions there that he didn't know that he had available to him. And look, I don't know about you. I was born tax rebellious. I think our country was born tax rebellious. If we can legally avoid paying taxes, we sure try to do that. Even if it's a small amount, we sure try to find those tax deductions where we can. And that's not the main reason why you do it, but it's a nice little cherry on top. And so most people don't know that if you're a business owner, you have some extra tax deductibility with these policies.
I'm just going to jump in here too. As somebody that sold long-term care, I did not know there were tax advantages. I did not know a lot of this stuff. And that is why, like, I send it to Michelle because I know my lane, and that is whole life, and that is infinite banking and agriculture, right? Like, that is my lane. I am not going to sell a long-term care policy and do it incorrectly and cost the farm. Because I look at it and go, okay, I could do this. I suppose I could learn it if I wanted to. I don't have time to do that. But so many agents out there are wanting to sell it because they don't want to give up the commission. And I could care less. We need to save farms. We've worked our butt off to build them, and we are not taking the correct steps to save them. So if we need to see someone like Michelle so that we do know we have the tax advantages and she can go over all those advantages, the annuities, the IRAs that can be moved over into long-term care, there are so many options. You have to find the expert in that field and not just assume the local guy is the expert because he sells IRAs, long-term care, whole life, universal life, PNC, like, oh, he knows everything. No, you can't know everything. That's just in my opinion, that's impossible.
Yeah. Oh, they can sell you something.
And
I'm not sure if they'll
For
be
sure.
there on the back end when it comes time to deliver on the promises made, but they'll put you in something. Sure.
Our sponsor today is Remedy Animal Solutions. I recently had an opportunity to talk with Daniel Dirksen, who has been using these remedies on a large-scale beef operation in Alberta.
My family, my two brothers, my aunt, uncle, my parents, along with all our spouses, we own and operate Dirksen Farms and Gemstone Cattle Company. We have a large commercial cow herd, feedstock, purebred Hereford, Red Angus herd, conventional feedlot, and in 2018 we started direct marketing grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Since 2020, I guess when COVID broke out, we were started to field a whole bunch of calls on, what was in the vaccine that we were giving cattle. Our protocol is no antibiotics, no implant for the stuff that we direct market through our grass finishing program. And just the amount of calls we were getting, we thought, man, we should look into this. The fall of 24 would have been the first time I used it. So I detoxed my whole cow herd and gave them immune boost when we preg tested in the fall. And then I did the same thing with all my calves in the fall. And then I did that, and she sent me some other remedies and said, we'll just put it in water and treat salt. And I kind of just sat on it all winter, not really sure how to do that. And talking with some friends, I said, if we're going to do this, let's see if she'll come up and visit with us, tell us more about it, and show us how to do it. And so she did in April of 25. She came up. So she gave me some remedies. One was hormonal wake up and pro vitality, and she said, give this to your cattle like 3 weeks before calving time. You're going to see better mothering heifers. They're going to calve out better. And that's kind of where I saw the first evidence that there's something here. We calved probably 150 heifers. I'd given them the remedies. We helped very few heifers. There were some heifers that had some calves that in the past, I'm like, man, I would have probably had to pull that, and they didn't. The heifers were fine. They mothered unbelievable. We pair out. They stuck with their calves when we tagged them after birth. When we paired out last spring, when we paired out right to the bitter end, every cow had a calf, and they all claimed them. So right away then I thought, man, there's something to this.
If you're interested, you can find out more at remedyanimalsolutions.com. Michelle and Mary Jo, both I'd like to cooperate and talk about kind of the ideal strategy as you guys see it. Knowing my audience, we're talking late 30s to mid 40s, mostly. So yeah, as the podcast has been around longer, and I've been doing this longer, the audience has started to trend older a little bit, but still the vast majority of them you're going to catch males in their mid 30s to mid upper 40s. So talk to that group about how you would approach this going forward. Say they aren't doing IBC or any kind of long-term care insurance. Talk to them, and then maybe we'll talk to some people who already maybe dipped their toe in the water and what they could do to maybe shift their strategy. So.
Well, in my opinion, I think Mary Jo's policies and the way that she does things is for, a lot of it's for current use, and then of course for legacy. To me, so I will defer to her first, because the long-term care is the bow that gets wrapped around everything to make sure that it stays in place. I had mentioned on her podcast, it sounds terrible to say it this way, but I'm just going to say it. It's more for shock effect, I suppose. If you just died, it's better that way in this regard. Everybody knows exactly what's going to happen. Life insurance gets paid out. Hopefully you did that. We know you got to step up in basis. Like all these things we know because it's finite. What the problem is what if you don't die? And what if you live a very long time? Because all those plans, succession plans, the trust work, like none of that works yet because you're still living. And that's the problem. That's why long-term care wraps the bow around the entire plan to make sure that those end results are exactly as intended. So I'll turn it over to Mary Jo first, and then I'll talk about the strategy that I implement.
Mhm. A lot of what I'm doing, right, is the planning for while you're alive.
Mhm.
Let's finance the operation. Maybe we buy life insurance on, I just talked about this today. We buy life insurance on dad or mom, and then when they pass away, we have the death benefit coming to us so that we can buy the farm from siblings. We can use it to operate. We can buy equipment. We, buy land, expand, whatever it is you want to do. It's not a get rich quick scheme. Mom and dad are too old. Okay, so get over that thought. But we do have, I'm planning for living. I'm planning for the transition of generational wealth. Let's leave the death benefit to the kids so that they can have it for generational wealth. All along, we've provided income to buy equipment. We've provided retirement, possibly. I actually am at the point where I talked to clients last week about this. Like, what am I going to have for retirement? I'm like, farmers don't retire, right? So that was only maybe the second time I've had that conversation in 16 years because farmers don't retire. But it was super interesting conversation to say, hey, this is what we've got for retirement that can be income tax-free money, depending on if we use that correctly. But and we're planning for the generational piece of it. The piece that I talked about all the time is how are you creating the estate plan? Do you have a trust? Do you have irrevocable trust? Do you have a will? What do you have? And they didn't have the long-term care piece in there. So they think, oh, well, Medicaid's just going to be okay, but they don't know they have to buy down for Medicaid. And so really everything Michelle and I do together is, hey, you still need the trust. You still need to have the attorney and whoever it is that's helping you create the estate plan. You still need that piece. But like Michelle and I talk about, the estate planners and the attorneys specifically, I'll pick on the attorneys. The attorneys specifically seem to be missing the life insurance piece, and they seem to be missing the long-term care piece. Because if we leave life insurance, now we have money to pay for probate. Maybe we have money to pay the siblings that aren't taking over the farm.
Mhm.
That piece of it is important. But then the long-term care piece is, hey, who's going to pay for my care? Do we have to sell off all of our assets? What does that look like? And so together, the two of them are almost, in my opinion, necessary to have both.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so thank you, Mary Jo. Appreciate that refresher. And but then you mentioned, Michelle, the bow, kind of keeping it in place. Is there more you'd like to add there, kind of how you would strategize or think about it maybe at different stages in life?
Sure, because there are different. Thank you for asking that because it's important. So a lot of financial pros, I call them financial pros, but maybe not necessarily in long-term care. They'll do a one size fits all. So they'll say the average length of care is 3, 4, 5 years. So we'll get you a 6-year policy and that'll be good enough. But what if it's not? I talk about, hair on fire, and I use this analogy. If I'm standing in a bucket of ice water and my hair's on fire, on average, I'm comfortable. You don't plan for comfortable. You plan for hair on fire. We always should plan for worst case scenario, hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. And so whenever I'm doing strategies with folks for long-term care, I leave out what I call BS, which is belief system. There are people that have belief systems or they have their own BS where they bring it and they want a one size fits all. Here's what you need. And I don't do it that way because every family is different. And every point of time, they are different points in their life. So Sometimes it could be affordability that we're focused on. So with my younger crowd, we do something that's called stacking. So we get a little bit now. So I'll use that example Mary Jo had shared earlier about the gentleman that had the four-wheeler accident. So imagine we'll go back in time and imagine that he had just bought a small policy. He didn't get the full nursing home coverage at 10, 12, 14,000, but maybe he could afford at the time $4,000 a month. And that's what I see people do. So they might start with 4 or 6,000, and then a few years later, kids graduate from college, or their farming business really kind of explodes. So then they tack on another one, and they tack on another one, and they tack on another one. So if in that situation he had $4,000 a month in long-term care, then maybe his wife was doing some of that caregiving for him. And I talked to her. It was scary for her. But she had some money where she could hire a caretaker to come in and do the heavy lifting, because she still has little kids and she still works herself. So she could hire someone to come in, maybe do the night shift so she could get some sleep, for Pete's sake. She needs some rest. She's got kids to take care of, a husband that can't take care of himself. So even a little bit helps relieve a lot of pressure. And it also saves a lot of money. So it buys options. And that's what we're trying to do. Money buys options, and we're trying to buy freedom and take care of that. So that's what I see more with my younger, and I'm generalizing here. So with my younger clientele, we do a stacking approach. So we start with a little bit, and then as funds come available, we stack a little bit more, and we stack a little bit more. When I get to my people, I will say in the middle range. So those are my 50s, my 50 to 60-year-old folks. They can do one or both. So sometimes I get them doing stacking. Sometimes I get them where they're just buying the full shebang now, and then they're just done. Just one and done. I got it taken care of. Once I get into my 60s, 70s, I've got some options for them that are really attractive, but they're usually buying at one time and they're done. And usually, and here's why, again, generally speaking, they're starting to experience some health stuff at that point. Not everybody, but a lot of them. And so we know we might not have the option to stack later on. We need to get what we can get now and take advantage of some decent health now. But then I also have folks that are in their 80s. And so I still have an option for people up to age 85, believe it or not. That is actually pretty easy to get. Some people are shocked. Now, the only caveat that I will say is if someone is already needing help, there is limited things that I can do. At this point, now we're in crisis control, and this is when I usually start getting elder law attorneys involved, because we're trying to save the house that's on fire. I probably shouldn't say it that way, but once the house is on fire, it's hard to get homeowners coverage because there's already a crisis. So there's usually limited things that I can do. I can help people find resources, and I can guide them, and I can help them find elder law attorneys that can help put plans in place in a crisis situation, but coverage may not be available anymore. So if someone already has Alzheimer's, if they already have Parkinson's, if they already have some kind of a dementia, if they're already in a wheelchair, or they already have a paralysis of some kind, my options get very limited. So that's why we want to do planning ahead of time before those things happen. Don't wait until it's later. But if you have good health now, even in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, there are some options. And I want one more clarification, Clay. So some people think, and it's all relative, well, I don't have good health because I'm a diabetic. We see diabetics get accepted all the time. That's not a problem. I have high blood pressure. Who doesn't? Michelle, I have high cholesterol. We all do. So those are common. That's not a problem. Even previous cancers, just depending on what type of cancer, the staging of the cancer, how they were treated, and how they're doing now, they can still even get preferred rates. Heart conditions, there's a lot that people make assumptions. Oh, it's too late for me. No, it's not. Just give me a buzz. Give me a buzz. We'll talk it through, because there's probably some options for you.
And what about people who already have some kind of long-term care coverage? What have you recommended? I'm sure it depends on the coverage, but as far as, are they rolling something over? Are they abandoning a policy? What does that look like?
That's another great question. So both. I see both. There are some situations where they bought the right policy. It was really good. And so I encourage them to do it. Maybe they need to beef up their coverage if they have the ability to do that. There was a lady, Mary Jo and I talked to, both of us. She lives in Tennessee. She thought that she had bought something, but she didn't. Once I looked at the policy, I was like, well, it's not exactly as it was explained to you. So she's going to stack a second policy to make up that deficit. I have a gentleman that also works with Mary Jo, a good client. He's a great guy. I enjoyed him. He's in North Carolina. I won't say much more, but Mary Jo knows who I'm talking about. He did buy a policy. So he did the proper planning ahead of time, but it wasn't the best one. And so I was able to not only get him and his wife lifetime coverage versus a shared bucket of a small amount, but I also saved them quite a bit of money. And they were also ones that didn't know about tax deductibility. So not only was I able to get them quite a bit less in premium, quite a bit more in coverage. So that policy they are going to get rid of because it didn't make sense to keep it. So that's what I do is I will go through your current plan to see, do you already have one? And if it's good, then keep it. If we could do better, then I will show them how we can do it better. Last thing I'll say on that. A lot of people make assumptions that I need to make payments. There are a lot of different ways to fund these policies. I mentioned that lady earlier in her early 60s where she had an idle IRA. She wasn't using it for anything. And so she said, Michelle, I'm not going to live on that. I might as well put that to good use, leverage it, make it much bigger to protect myself and my family. So that makes sense. There's some people that want to pay cash lump sum because they have cash sitting in the bank. Or I had shared with Mary Jo that I had some farmers that I worked with in Ohio. A handful of them just sold off an old piece of equipment and used that one time, and they just paid one time and had it done. So they didn't have to write a check or be obligated to pay a check every year if they didn't want to be. So there are a lot of different ways that people can approach this, but I show them all the options and I let them pick what's right for them. I don't tell them, I let them pick what's right for them, but I show them all.
And I think in this industry, we need to look at, okay, we've got our life insurance in place because I can't sell you life insurance at 85, right? And I don't necessarily want to sell you life insurance over 70. And so if you're that age and all of a sudden you're like, hey, Mary Jo, I need some life insurance for estate planning. And I might say, hey, you know what? We need to go to Michelle instead because the life insurance piece might not make sense for you on your life. I mean, obviously we can buy it on the kids' lives and those sort of things. But if we are looking at giving the kids the land at a step-up in basis, but those kids have to pay for the nursing home or they have to pay for assisted living, they bought the darn land. That they didn't get it, right? They paid for it. And I really like Michelle as a story, and she just mentioned, like, if mom and dad can sell a little piece of land, or they can maybe sell some equipment off, or something can be sold so that now we've got the long-term care policy to pay for those expenses. We have to get creative about how we're going to save everything that we waited until we're 75, 80 to plan for. Because we think we're going to be able to farm till we're 90. And you can go out there till you're 90, but that doesn't mean you're physically farming at 90, right? And it can switch very quickly at that age that, now we're in assisted living or now we're in a home. So I think that a lot of people think it's too expensive to get started, and you don't know that because you've not yet had that conversation. It's the same as saying, it's too expensive to start a whole life policy because I've heard all this stuff. Well, is it? I don't know. Michelle and I don't know where you need to get started until we have the conversation with you. And again, the one piece that I like about Michelle is I can 100% trust that she's not going to sell somebody something that is not right for them. Just like I won't sell something that is not right for somebody, or I'll say, no, you know what? Now's not the right time. Michelle will do that as well because it's not a commission-driven sale. It's a care-driven sale. And so it's very different when you find that person that is really wanting to make sure you're taken care of versus, where's my next paycheck coming
Certainly.
from?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Michelle, you mentioned a book that you've written. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's called Who's Wiping Your Assets? Thank you for chuckling at that title. That was a fun book to write. I wrote it in a sarcastically funny way. I thought was sarcastically funny, because every long-term care book that I had ever read was sad, boring, and technical, and nobody wants to read that. And this is such a big topic. It affects. Well, it's affected every family I've ever known. So I don't know why most people put their heads in the sand about it. So I tried to talk about it in a way that made it lighthearted and funny. I shared some good stories in there, some funny stories. But it's called Who's Wiping Your Assets because I take a not just what happens to your family and the people that you love, what happens between the siblings, because there's a lot of infighting, unless you're one of the lucky ones. But most of the time we see that not turn out as well. But then also what happens to spouses, what happens to women. They're more likely to need care for a longer period of time. But then I also take a money approach to it. And I really try to break it down to make it as simple as possible to show that this is really a cash flow issue. Because a lot of people say, Michelle, I have plenty of money. I have assets. I have other things. You might do that. But if you had to pay for this out of pocket, you're going to pay retail money for it. If it's 10 grand a month, you're going to write a check for 10 grand a month. That doesn't make sense to me. I'd much rather pay pennies on the dollar for anything that I buy. I don't care if I'm going to buy a blouse at the store, I want to get a deal. Or if I'm going to buy a commercial building, I want to get a deal. If I'm going to buy, a farm, I want to get a deal on it. And so this shows you different ways that you can approach this to leverage your money, make your pennies work like big dollars, but then also make sure that you don't outlive it. So that is, I lean more toward that lifetime coverage when I'm dealing with couples, when I'm dealing with at least one of them being female, and when I'm dealing with longevity. Because the healthier you are, the longer you're likely to live. And so when people say, Michelle, and I talk about this in my book, Michelle, I'm healthy. I'm like, you're the problem. So just, stop exercising, start smoking cigarettes again, drink like a fish, eat lots of bacon. Lots of bacon. I love bacon. But I'm teasing when I say that. Just what I mean is, if you are healthier, which we are more knowledgeable about our health these days, you're likely to live longer to the ages where you are likely to need care. So that means you do need to plan for this. So
I want to point one thing out that we kind of missed earlier, Clay, is when we were talking about the coverage on the young couple at $5,000 a year, we're talking both people.
Oh, yeah.
Covered until death for $5,000 a year. Was that $433 a month or something? Like that a lot of times when people think about long-term care, and I have to remind myself of this when I talk about long-term care, is that my policy that I have with One America, which was not done correctly because I did it, so Michelle has to fix it. But that policy is paying for Scott and I both until the day we die. It is not just, my premium is $12,000 a year and I have all the bells and whistles on it, so it's a little bit more expensive than what you would get if you were stacking policies like Michelle says. But that's for both of us. So $1,000 a month and care could be $10,000 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of times when people are sold long-term care, this is a policy on Clay, this is a policy on Michelle. This is not a policy per couple. So I think that is important for people to understand. Now, Michelle can sell different types of policies, but the majority of the ones that she's going to sell are going to go as a couple. So you don't have to take that 5,000 times 2.
Yeah. No, that's true. And when because I show people, I show them what it would be to get a lifetime coverage. And then I also show them what it is to buy the limited coverage. And the price differential is so minimal that they're like, who would do that? And I go, I don't know. I would never want my income limited to 6 years. If a financial pro came to me and he said, Michelle, I got a great plan for you. You're going to love this. I got it hooked up to where you're in retirement, you're going to have 6 years of income. I would be like, are you crazy? I need more than 6 years of income. I plan on living a long time. That is not a good deal. I need income that lasts however long I do. That is the ultimate goal. And so that's why more people will gravitate toward the lifetime coverage options, because you'll find I had a situation where it was $600 a year difference. And she was like, who would do that? And I go, I don't know. I don't know who would do that. Where this could potentially pay out double, maybe even triple, depending on how long you need care. And back to Mary Jo with Scott, her lovely husband, there is a 91% chance that it will be one of them that needs care. 91. There's a 9% chance that they both just pass away peacefully in their sleep. Now, if I talk to Scott, Scott's going to go, oh, it's Mary Jo. And Mary Jo's going to go, no, it's going to be Scott. The problem is we don't know. That's why when you do policies where two people are on one, you've got it all covered, because there is a 91% chance that one of them is going to be needing care.
And I know if it's me, I'm screwed, because Scott is not like, we just went through this a couple weeks ago, Clay. I don't know what you and your wife are like, but Scott like hurt his back or something. So I'm like, hey, do I need to rub some stuff on it? Like, I've got all the, snake oils out trying to make his back better. And I've got the massage gun. I'm doing the whole thing. And I don't know what I did. I like hurt something. And he's just like, oh, that sucks. I'm like, nothing. Like, you didn't even offer to care for me, dude. Like, I'm going to need the long-term care because I'm going to need somebody that's going to care for me. Like, men just don't. It's not. Scott is lovely, but it's a man thing, right? When your wife is hurting, you do not think, oh, she was so nice to me last week. I should do the same thing. No, you're going to be like, oh, geez, I haven't showered you in like a week. Perhaps, do you need a shower, do you think?
No, she doesn't need that. Nah, she's fine.
And we talk about that at our house a lot. The Connery compassion, it's not compassion.
Right. Right.
That's so funny. Yeah, and I think I like that Michelle was just talking about just cash flow.
Mhm.
We talk about that, Clay. You talk about it all the time on your podcast. So that's what your podcast is about. How is this farm cash flowing? How is this ranch cash flowing? I talk about it nonstop. How is that money cash flowing so we can put that through a policy, right? We can have more money. Everything is cash flow. Same thing with Michelle.
Yep.
It's cash flow. I mean, that is the name of her business, is Care Income Planning. So how can we have that cash flow continually coming in to pay for assisted living, to pay for care at home, to pay for the nursing home care? Like, all of those things matter, because my policy will cash flow until you're out of cash, right? There still needs to be something cash flowing. And I don't know an asset. I mean, you could sell a farm and if you're in the right area, you could sell the farm and maybe have enough cash flow to pay for those nursing home costs. But to have cash flowing assets at $10,000 to $15,000 a month in today's dollars, that is not inflation of 15 to 20 years. I don't remember what our policy is, but we have the inflation rider on there. So when I get to be 80, I think our policy will pay something like $30,000 a month for nursing home care. And that is not an exaggerated number. That if you take it with 4% inflation, as you know, that's not true. If you use real inflation numbers, are we going to have nursing homes and people to take care of us? Because it's impossible right now. But what are those costs truly going to be?
Well, here's some math. I don't like to do a lot of math because I do girl math. My husband doesn't like my girl math. But I'm going to give you easy numbers. So I have two 60-year-olds, and they're going to pay one time to get this just done. So they're going to put in $150,000. One time covers them both. They're done. They are guaranteed $91,000 a year each forever, tax-free for their care. So my question is, if I were to take that $150 and invest it somewhere else, what kind of rate would I have to earn on that $150 somewhere else to generate $91,000 a year for life? I'd have to get 61% year over year guaranteed. Now double that if both need it for care. That's not out there. I don't care how good you are in the stock market or in real estate, that you're not going to get that guaranteed year over year. Vice versa, let's say that we were going to generate 91,000, and let's say 5% was a good rate. If I took 91,000 and I divided by 5%, I'd have to have $1.8 million set aside, earning 5% to generate 91,000. And I'm talking about doing it for 150. That, my friend, is the power of leverage. That's taking pennies and making them work like really, really big dollars. And that's what wealthy people do. You want to be wealthy. Wealthy people have that mindset. I'm going to get a deal. I'm going to take pennies and turn them into big dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good. Very powerful. I appreciate it. But last question that I have, I have more, but for now, is, everybody's going to use Mary Jo's policy, right? Everybody dies. That's still 1 out of 1, right? apparently 91% would use Michelle's policy. What if they're in the 9%? Like you said, everybody thinks I'm not the one that's going to need this. But just talk to that. If they have the policy and it doesn't get used, what does that look like?
Can I
Thank you.
answer this, Michelle?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I want to answer this because Michelle's going to answer it complicated and I'm going to answer it very simple. But you need both, okay? Michelle's the long-term care that now she can sell all kinds, but the majority of what she's selling is built on a whole life chassis. So if they die without care, the heirs get paid a death benefit. If they decide to cancel the policy because mom and dad died at home and mom is 99 and, she's probably not going to have to go in, then you can cancel the policy and get the cash value. Okay, so it is still not a loss. It is still kind of a 1-for-1 like you had described because there is death benefit. So that's why you're not just throwing money away, a use it or lose it situation. There is something at the end for somebody if you did not need it.
And thank you for saying that, Mary Jo, because that actually set up my answer. So going back to that $150,000 for those two 60-year-olds getting $91,000, if they were the 9% and both of them just passed away, their family would get $182,000 as a death benefit. So they put in $150,000. They got it for the main reason of $91,000 a year each that they can't outlive. But if the chance is that both of them just pass away in their sleep, holding hands like in The Notebook, sorry, that's a callback, then their family's going to receive $182,000. So it wasn't wasted. Somebody got it.
It's almost like a return of premium, like a term policy or something like that is what I think of it as. Which is like when I sold long-term care, I would never sell anything but that option. Like I didn't have all these other options Michelle has. It was only that option because I didn't like long-term care. Like truly until Michelle worked. So here's a little background on Michelle that we didn't even get to. She worked for One America, for the insurance company for 20, how many years, Michelle? 29?
Yeah, I started where these products originated back in 1998. So
she's been there for a while. So she always worked in home office. And I just was like, what do we need long-term care for? Just use the cash value in your policy to pay for the nursing home. We don't need long-term care. We don't need long-term care. Until she started selling, and then her and I just started visiting. And I was like, what do you mean it can be used for that? What do you mean it can be used for that? Because I just did not pay attention to the insurance company when they would try to come and tell me, you should sell long-term care. I'm like, I am busy enough. I don't need one more thing on my plate, right? Well, when you understand that they can be used for home care, they can be used for assisted living, they can be used for cancer, they can be used for an accident. That's a game changer. I can't do that in the whole life policy.
Yeah, very good. We talked about the book. Farmingwithoutthebank.com is a place to go and get more information on Mary Jo and the work she's doing. Michelle, what about you?
Careincomeplanning.com.
Very good. Anything else? Any other places that you would direct them to go and learn more?
They can go there and fill out a form to just have a conversation with me. So just their name and email address. And I think that's probably the best way to start. They can do all kinds of research, and there's a lot of stuff on my website. So if they just want to watch some videos, they can watch it there, or just have a conversation. Just explore what your options are. And that's probably how that's the best advice I would give, because everybody's situation is different. Even though they're kind of similar, we all have families, we all have siblings, we all have these family dynamics, we all have businesses that we're trying to save and make sure they pass on to the next generation. But the way we go about it is different. So it needs to start with a conversation and just exploring your options. Just having the knowledge and the education on what's available to you, I think, is the next step in the right direction.
And where can they get your book, Michelle?
So they can get it right now on Amazon. Just look up Who's Wiping Your Assets, and they can get it on Amazon. In the future, it will be on my website, but right now it's through Amazon.
And we've started one just for, farmers and ranchers. So I am super excited about that. We're just starting it. So hang in there, people. But I really want it to speak to I want it to be very similar to Farming Without the Bank. So we have some actual tangible strategies of how it can get used so people can see that, because it's just it is kind of its own animal.
Well, when that's out, we should chat again for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
For sure.
all right. Michelle, Mary Jo, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Clay.
Clay, thank you.
Very good stuff there with Michelle and Mary Jo. Really appreciate the opportunity to hammer some of those things out and find out kind of the way that they're thinking about these things and trying to help people with those challenges going forward. Coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, we'll be talking to Jacob Miller. Jacob has been on the show before, and actually we talked about drought last time he was on the show as well, but he has continued to see the benefits of sticking to a drought plan, continued to see that when the big rains do come, they infiltrate the water. It doesn't run off as much, and they are able to capture it and hold on to it longer and make use of it and maintain profitability in the ranch. And so just wanted to kind of get an update on his situation, challenging circumstances that they've been seeing there in Southwest Nebraska, and see, what else he's learned in the couple of years since we talked to him last. So look forward to sharing that with you coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.